Welcome to Plato the Republic. Today we're gonna go ahead and talk about the Republics, the parts 1 to 6, so technically introduction and books 1 to 5. Let's get this started with. Now, first off, here's a few things you got to know before we can even start discussing the book. Socrates. You can watch my video on Plato for more about that. But right now, I'm just gonna go dive back into Socrates. Socrates himself, we don't know much about his life. The only reason why we know much about his life is because of Plato. Plato wrote all these dialogues, and because he wrote all these dialogues, these are the only surviving records of Plato that are left. And Socrates too, because Socrates never wanted to write anything. It's writing is static, you can't change it, that's his reason. Once you write it, he thinks an idea dies. However, it usually can't drink poison too. So, Plato was willing to do it anyway. With this Republic, he goes ahead and uses Socrates not as the historical figure, like the person Socrates, but somewhere in between the gray area of a line where he goes ahead, makes this setting, and lets Socrates, this character slash person kind of person, let loose right here. And go ahead and let you go ahead and do all that, and then they're like, alright Socrates, you're saying also you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do this. And of course it's a dialogue, so it's mainly like a play, so take that with a grain of salt. Now let's start off with the actual Republic here. Now, the Republic part 1 is an introduction, and here the introduction is basically Socrates trying to go back home during that one day he was at the marketplace, or somewhere like that, and then suddenly he goes ahead, and there's these two people who come and say, "Hey, Socrates!" "Yes." "Well, we're gonna go ahead and go back to the marketplace to see the other saints are coming. I was gonna go home if you haven't seen." "Well, you gotta stay. We also have a few questions for you to ask." What is morality? What is morality? He goes ahead and starts dissecting that whole morality idea. And after dissecting that entire idea of morality, which I'm pretty sure they're pretty annoyed by, then you're gonna just go ahead and see them in their true form. With all this happening, the Republic goes ahead and shows you, well, Socrates goes ahead and shows you technically, because Plato may have written this, but Socrates is the main character here. This Socrates goes ahead and tells you how annoying he can be too, but also, in between all that annoyingness, he can actually get some points really well too. Like, let me give you a little quote. "Then there's one musician who is..." Okay, so, here we go. "So far so good, Socrates. Do you recognize the distinction between musical and unmusical?" "Yes." "And which of these two involves intelligence?" "Being musical and being unmusical does not." "And intelligence is good, lack of it bad?" "Yes." "And the same argument applies to medicine?" "It does." "Then this one musician who is tuning a lyre try to do better than another, or saying he ought to outdo him in tightening or loosening the strings?" "I think not. But he does try to do better than an unmusical layman. He must try to do that." "What about a doctor then? In prescribing a diet, is he trying to outdo other doctors and get the better of them in a medical practice?" "No. But does he try to do better than in the layman?" "Yes." See, he asks all these questions, thinks about them, and in this part, in this introduction, we go ahead and find out what Socrates kind of person is. I mean, unless you've already read the other Plato works, then you'll probably not know about much about this, but this Republic is probably the most famous version of Plato's work, because it literally talks about the totalitarianism, and people call this the prototype of totalitarianism and the philosopher king as like propaganda. As for all this, there are a few other things to really talk about this too. Socrates criticizes them a tad bit too much, and he just literally forces them to restate the case. Like, hold on, that's not what. Yes, actually, it is what you said. Fine, I meant this. Says it's completely different thing, and I thought you said it was that. Yeah, it's wrong. Then are you saying you're right? No, yes, and he's kind of confused now. Socrates confused these people like so much so that he just kind of started annoying all these people. But then again, other people start respecting him because of how he's doing this. This whole conversation happened in one night. Technically, I assume one night, because up until now, it's been one night. And in that one night, it goes ahead and shows you everything that Socrates can do. He's already annoyed a person by saying... Okay, speaking of annoying, this next part is part 2, preliminaries. Here we have to talk about book 1, because that's literally where it starts. Now remember, this book is about, this dialogue, should I call it, goes ahead and tells you about the perfect society, the A-OK society, where you can go ahead and do things that are best for you. And with all that, you can go ahead and do things too. These civilized societies, he talks about civilized societies, and I actually have to admit, some of these arguments are pretty good. In civilized societies, you have to be civilized too. He talks about manners, he talks about greatness, and then he even talks about the classes. I mean, I'm not even gonna go in order anymore. And he talks about the education systems, how it will be at. How should this philosopher king be educated? I think there should be a philosopher king, he goes and says. However, right now, he also has to resolve the question, how are you going to teach the philosopher king? He goes ahead and says all that with this education, which is literally what book 2 is dedicated to. When he went ahead and told people, what is morality? You keep using that word. Define it. Which of course kinda annoys these people. Like, he goes ahead, tells a self-proclaimed expert or a person who went ahead and said, I am the best man there is in this subject. Well, and then he goes, are you? So, I mean, let's look at this. Yeah, about that. Yeah, what about this? With all these questions, which are a little bit annoying, but also pretty accurate too, you go ahead and learn the best thing in the entire world. At least according to Socrates. And you might get your career ruined, and you might be seen as a blundering baboon afterwards, but however, at least you got a better life, am I right? No, of course not. Socrates kind of ruined your life. But then Socrates argues that I don't know everything, and then goes ahead and tells them that you don't know everything. And then says things that makes it look like that he thinks he knows everything, which, in my opinion, shouldn't even be happening. Anyways, back to this topic here. We have a few more classes to really talk about too. Classes are one of the most important things that we can talk about here too. Socrates, technically Plato, himself actually goes ahead and makes this argument. I'm just gonna call him Plato because Plato has written this. Socrates probably never seen this. Plato himself went ahead and talked about these 3 classes. He said that this entire world is split into 3 classes. Now we are born, our souls are born with a mixture of gold, silver, brass, or iron. And it's how much of each element that we have inside our souls determines our role in life. If there's more silver or brass, you're probably gonna be more like just a bit average, especially if you have the silver, especially if you have the brass. If you have the silver, you're probably gonna be like the aristocracy. If you have the gold, you're definitely the ruler. The gold rules all, and the iron, you're gonna be a warrior, or you're just gonna want to be those poor people. You're gonna be one of those poor people too. Yeah, and with all this, we actually kind of see the ruling classes too. Plato himself also split his republic into 3 classes, and since he wanted to split them into them, I'll just tell you about them right now. He split them into these 3 classes: the rulers, the warriors, and the working people. No one is poor, and no one is gonna get others to do the slack for them, except maybe the rulers, because yeah. Now, each being the ruler is nothing different, as in like a craft such as pottery making or medicine. In fact, these forms, by the way, forms are things Plato also said. He said that the whole world is just a copy, an imperfect copy of this perfect world of forms. Like, in this perfect world of forms nowadays, there will technically be like the perfect pencil, or the perfect calculator, or the perfect YouTube channel, some those kinds of things. And he says that philosophers must strive to go ahead and understand these perfect forms, like to understand the perfect pencil, to go ahead to understand our imperfect forms, like this pencil. This video is recording this image of me that I'm looking at right now on this camera, on this phone, is made up of pixel, which is an image of me, which I am an image of humanity, and humanity is an image of life itself, and life is just like an image of, well, the universe. Just one way to actually see the universe, other than the fact that the universe is just too big to actually do that. Hey, and with that, we learn. We learn to do things. We learn to get things. However, we also learn to go ahead and do all these. Ruling is the craft of mastering the knowledge of these forms, to mastering the understanding of these forms. If you understand these forms the best, you're the greatest philosopher in our society. You will be the philosopher king. At least that's how he puts it. Except I haven't actually read up on the Philosopher King yet. I'll do that next week. With all this, he goes ahead and talks about all these things too. He even talks about the ideal justice, saying a bunch of weird things too. He literally called the justice something like, hey, how is that just? Well, the just man only wants to fight the unjust man, and the unjust man wants to fight everyone. Is that so? Then why did he fight? Is he unjust? Yeah. Then why did he? Is he just? Yeah. Well, why did he fight him? I don't know. And like, is this just person? Why is this just person? You call this person just. You also call this person just. Why are they arguing? Why are they debating? They're debating, not arguing. Well, why are they like hitting each other then? How do you know what is right? Right things are going ahead and then showing everyone what their things are. What the Spartans see as right, we Athenians might see as wrong. What we see as right, Spartans would see as wrong. And vice versa. Also, I'm pretty sure Socrates would never actually say that. I never saw it in here because Socrates is a very good listener. He has a deep respect towards the Athenian society, the Athenian democratic system, and also the Athenian ways of the laws too. So he'll probably never ever say anything like that too. But then again, he does kind of have a point because he said something similar to that. Finally, in the last book I read right now, which is book 5, which is technically part 6, he goes ahead and talks about women because apparently someone interrupted his conversation, his argument with someone about the Republic. And they said, what are women's role in this society? And he's all like, well, women are... Alright, so women are technically supposed to be stay-at-home people too. However, if they're good enough too, and somehow better than us men, which I see as highly likely, but it is possible, that they can also be philosopher queens. And with all that, you can literally find out things too. However, the rest of the time, you guys should stay at home. However, during wartime, you guys can go ahead. And take charge of the home itself, because all your men are gonna be outside there, at war. And since you're at war, you're gonna go ahead and you will be the only ones left in this place too, except for the males who are incapacitated and can't go to fighting. And you're the ones who took care of the kids too. So you technically share the most power, but we men are the ones who provide for you. So you guys must go ahead, stay at home, but during the war, you guys are the ones in charge, okay? That doesn't seem to sound like a very gender biased. That sounds very gender biased, doesn't it? Well, remember, these are ancient times. This is like 300 something BCE. Remember, don't never forget that. This is like 400 something BCE. Okay, it's like the time of his life, the time of Socrates' life. Okay. Also, gender equality only came into here. Well, it's been here for a while, but it's only become everyone's attention here only a few decades ago. This is like at least 2 millennia ago. Remember that, women. And with that, that's it. Also, kind of awkward of me saying all this because it should probably be an adult saying all this. Probably weird to see a kid going ahead and talking to you guys about this. Then again, I'm 12 years old, 13 years old, so yeah. Oops. And so this is Plato the Republic, parts 1 to 6, from a 13-year-old kid. I hope to see you guys next week for part 7 and part 11. And I'll see you guys then. Until next time, Shnan out. Peace. Bye bye. Wear a helmet. Peace.